5 years, and I only find out now I wasn't crazy. Worst part is, the other person was completely on board with hurting me for so long too. This is gonna be quite long since it just happened yesterday, so skip for TLDR. I always had my suspicions. But, I also have a history of mental illness. He would always tell me that I was sick, I needed help, that I was delusional for my beliefs that he was cheating. And I wanted to believe it was true, that I just needed a good therapist. But something was always missing. We were somewhat on and off, but for the most part he always won me back. He never cheated during that time, we were just distant because we both were working through previous trauma and insecurities. I should have known something was wrong earlier this year. He used to always tell me if I was paranoid about being talked to behind my back, that was one reason we sorta ended things for a bit. He could show me his messages. So, when I eventually did take him up on the offer a few months later, and he denied it, my mind started spiraling. Yesterday, his friend was coming to fly over to visit. He started getting close to this friend in August of 2021. They were pretty mean initially and lied to him a lot. I kept telling him they weren't good, but he insisted on keeping them around. I didn't trust them the whole time, but I kept quiet because he was so adamant on defending them. They'd spend hours talking to each other and even fell asleep on the phone many times. I said I'd come and pick them up from the airport with my car since it held gas better than his. I remember that morning even thinking, maybe I should apologize to this friend. They know that I get really crazy when they are involved in a conversation. I must have made them uncomfortable. Cut to yesterday, I arrived at his place to wait for him to come back from work so we could go to the airport. He lets me borrow his iPad sometimes to work on school projects, so I started working on that while waiting. But, my mind had this weird inclination to check the messages app he had. I kept telling myself, no, that's invading his privacy. That's not nice. He'd get mad at me if he somehow found out. But I did it anyways. And I wish I didn't. I wish it never happened and I just believed I was crazy. Or that I just dreamt that I saw the messages I did. But it's too real. I took photos of as many of the messages as I could, 13 photos to be precise, just to reassure myself that what I was seeing was real. He was talking about all sorts of romantic things with them. More romantic than he's ever said or done to me. Messages upon messages upon messages. Hearts, pictures, flirty comments, talks about cuddling and sex. I didn't even get through it all before I exited the app and put away the iPad. I felt gross and sick. I felt like vomiting and crying at the same time. I didn't know what to do. I wasn't surprised. I had my suspicions and addressed them on multiple occasions, but I didn't have proof to back them up until now. I wasn't sad anymore, I was just angry and disappointed that he'd lied to me when he knew it was what was affecting my mental health the most. Skipping to the drive to the airport, I could tell he knew what was on my mind because he was trying his best to be all sweet and saying a bunch of loving crap that he only says when he knows he's in the wrong about something. Usually it's pretty easy for me to cave in eventually, but I just felt numb. I didn't address it until we were a half hour away. I turned down the music we were playing and told him, I'm gonna ask you something, and if you lie to me, you aren't ever going to see me again. He was dumbstruck, so I continued. What's your relationship with your friend? Be honest. He says, I don't know what you're talking about. They're just my friend. I said, why are you lying to me? I don't know what you're talking about. He repeats. This goes back and forth for a few minutes until I finally bring up the evidence I have. Then, he gets as quiet as a mouse, like a deer caught in the headlights. I brought it up in detail, so he knew I wasn't lying. I was driving so I couldn't show the pictures to him, but when I started quoting some of the things he wrote, I think he knew there was no more denying it. He kept trying to say that he wanted to tell me, but he thought I wasn't mentally prepared to handle it. But if I had known earlier, I could have recovered much easier. I told him I knew what was happening since last year, but that I'd always get shut down. He started crying, begging me not to go and leave. I was just baffled. Again, truly disappointed in him. I told him that once we picked the other person up, not to say a word about what we spoke about. We picked them up, and I just tried to act casual. Everything would have remained quiet the rest of the way back if he didn't pull this next stunt. He legit tries leaving my moving car as we exit the busy airport. I had to restrain him back with one arm as I drove. Keep in mind, I'm not very strong either, so I was really scared he was going to hurt himself. He just kept saying, "What's the point? I'm never going to see you again." I've dealt with people who acted like this before, but I was still shocked. A bunch of arguing ensued, and that friend in the back had the audacity to tell me that I was always running away, saying that I was at fault for why I was being lied to. I asked, "So you knew about me and him? And you never said anything?" And they said yes, to which I went, "Some friend you are." They were blaming me. They knew what was happening, and they were blaming me. I know most people would have just dropped these two off in the middle of the desert somewhere, but I didn't want anybody to get hurt. I just wanted this nightmare to end. He kept crying and apologizing as we went back to his place, while I was trying to keep it together. At some point, I could hear the friend in the back also crying. It felt like this was a perfectly lined-up revenge, trapping two people who had hurt me the most in one car that I was in control of while forcing them to confront their actions, and making them cry as a result. But I couldn't feel complete even after it was all said and done. I'm glad I knew I could trust myself. I'm glad I was able to confront all of the pain I was put through. But I still felt empty. I could barely eat or sleep last night. He messaged me over and over, and called me twice apologizing. I'm tired. I just want it to end. TLDR, thought I was crazy for the longest time, found messages that confirmed my suspicions on his iPad, made both perpetrators cry during the drive back from picking the friend up from the airport. Edit, I think it's funny people immediately say I'm a girl. I will neither confirm nor deny it, as I'd take it as a compliment either way. Girl power flexed biceps.